Welcome back to Food Service Education. In this playlist, we're taking a new approach to making learning more manageable and effective. Instead of tackling an entire chapter that covers a wide range of food safety topics, we're breaking down the information into bite-sized pieces. Research has shown that this method significantly enhances retention, making it easier for you to absorb and remember key concepts. If you find this content helpful, please consider liking and sharing the video to spread the knowledge. We hope this approach helps you learn at a more comfortable pace while retaining the information better. Any questions, put them in the comments section and check out the description for additional resources. All right, well, welcome back to Food Service Education, guys. Today we are going to dive into another chunked down piece of information to help you retain key concepts for principles for safe kitchens better. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about cross-contamination. So let's start off like we always do with every lesson with a learning objective. So by the end of this lesson, students will be able to critically analyze and identify potential sources of food-to-food cross-contamination in various food handling scenarios. They will demonstrate effective prevention techniques for cross-contamination during refrigeration and preparation processes, ensuring that the separation of raw and ready-to-eat foods to maintain food safety standards. Okay, so what is cross-contamination? Well, the Google definition is the transfer of harmful bacteria from one person or object or place to another. The ServSafe definition is the transfer of harmful bacteria from one surface to another. Okay? Similar instances on transfer just depends on how you want to approach it. You see, the one thing I've learned over the years about this type of bacteria is that, listen, beneath the surface of wherever you're sitting right now, wherever you're viewing this, if you're viewing this on a computer, if you're viewing this on a laptop, on an iPad, on an iPhone, on an Android device, wherever you are, okay, there is this thing called the micro world. This is bacteria that we cannot see, we can't smell it, and we can't taste it, okay? Beneath those surfaces is an entirely different ecosystem, also known as the micro world. That's why chapter 2 is one of the single most important sections you can go through on our channel. It's our #1 playlist, but it covers the main basics behind the transfer of bacteria. Okay, so if you haven't checked out chapter 2, I encourage you check out chapter 2. It is one of our free videos that we offer here on Food Service Education. When I say free, the first hour of every playlist, I offer a full in-depth lecture of the content to give you a preview of what it would be like to be a member here on this community. So I encourage you, take advantage and check out chapter 2, the micro world. Okay? It'll go a little bit more into depth into cross-contamination, but today we're only going to be covering just cross-contamination. So, understanding cross-contamination. Cross-contamination occurs when harmful bacteria or allergens. Now, I want to pause for a second because allergens and cross-contamination, yeah, similar instances. It's more so called cross-contact, and I'll cover that in a different chunk down video. But it is similar to cross-contamination. And so I don't want you to confuse cross-contamination and cross-contact as the same thing because they're two different things. One has to do with bacteria, another has to do with allergens. But for this instances, let's just talk about what cross-contamination is. Okay, it's the harmful bacteria or allergens are transferred from one food item to another, typically through direct contact, utensils, hands, or surfaces. If you take a look at the image here, in circle, right, we have ready-to-eat food next to this raw meat preparation. This is what makes it so incredibly dangerous. You might think, well, you know what, the meat is ice cold and so is the produce. But what we don't see is that the temperature is starting to rise. We call that time temperature abuse, and I covered that in the last video, so make sure you check out time temperature abuse. But more specifically, you're never supposed to put raw anywhere near ready-to-eat food. And what you're looking at here in the image is, or in the image here, is indeed just that. It is ready-to-eat food, RTE, okay? And it's important that you understand that on ServSafe or on National Registry, when you take your industry certification, abbreviations are going to show up. So understanding what RTE stands for, ready-to-eat foods, is important. So make sure you take that down if you're taking notes. But in the image here, we have, it looks like tomatoes, some fresh herbs, and prosciutto. We have some olives in a bowl right over here. Okay. And she's cutting raw meat. Maybe she didn't want to move the stuff off the cutting board. When I was an instructor for the last decade in the classroom, that's one thing that, students had a hard time grasping. On their cutting board surfaces, they would try to, instead of moving stuff off the cutting board away from raw food, they would put it towards, one of the corners of the cutting board and then cut their raw meat on the same cutting board. That's a big no-no, okay? And that's by definition how cross-contamination truly occurs. If we cut something raw next to ready-to-eat food, and that food comes in contact, okay, that's the transfer bacteria. Remember, bacteria is not something you can see, smell, or taste. So even just a small smidge of it can get put onto ready-to-eat food. You then consume it, and you potentially get sick, okay? That's cross-contamination. Moving on. What are examples of cross-contamination? So raw meat and RTE, just like I spoke about. Okay, using the same cutting board or knife for raw chicken or meat, and then for salad without washing and sanitizing in between uses. Improper storage. Okay, storing raw meat on a higher refrigerator shelf, allowing the juices to drip onto ready-to-eat foods like fruits or vegetables stored below. I'm going to come back to this one because I'm going to show you an example of this. This happened actually in my classroom with another instructor I used to teach with. Okay, but I'm going to show you a key concept of what actually happened in the classroom, not to put down the school that I taught at or, to put down any instructor. Everything on this channel is for educational purposes and educational purposes only. Way too many times in the comments have I had students say, why are you picking on Chipotle? Well, Chipotle and Bluebell have been in the news a lot. So has Boar's Head recently. Foodborne illnesses occur everywhere. And it's because of the transfer of bacteria, cross-contamination, cross-contact, okay? So I will come back to this number 2, improper storage, just to kind of show you what not to do in your operation. And if you're a student or an instructor, this is just a good opportunity for you to see and to show your students how cross-contamination can quickly occur. Number 3, unwashed hands, okay? Handling raw eggs, and remember, these are just examples, okay? Handling raw eggs or meat and then touching other foods, utensils, or surfaces without washing your hands, okay? That's why it's important in between tasks, students, you are washing your hands. Take your gloves off before you put a new pair on, wash your hands. One of the most important concepts behind cross-contamination or behind why people get sick is because the leading cause of that is poor personal hygiene practices, okay?
All right, so when should you wash your hands?
Before you start your lab. After you come back from the bathroom.
After you pick a wedgie.
After you touch your phone.
After handling raw food.
After you touch your hair?
Whenever you think bacteria can get on your hands.
The key thing I want you to take away from in this video is that hand washing should happen frequently. Okay? So in between tasks, in between glove changing, make sure you wash your hands. But cross-contamination can occur from not doing that. Number 4, dirty utensils. Okay? Using the same tongs for raw and cooked meats. This happens a lot on the grill station. Growing up, before I, really started to explore culinary as a whole, back in my high school years, living at home, mom and dad would go out to the grill and they would innocently take their tongs, pick up burger patties or, hot dogs are technically cooked, they're smoked. But they would pick up raw burger patties out of the dish onto the grill and then back into the dish, using the same utensil, putting the cooked food back into raw food. I'm still here. But when you do this on a mass scale, this is where it becomes important to understand that it's a big no-no. Okay, that's called cross-contamination. When you take ready-to-eat food, put on top of raw food, or you use the same utensils for raw food that you're using for cooked food. Okay, big no-no. So the example here is using the same tongs for raw and cooked meats, such as flipping raw burgers on the grill and then serving the cooked burgers with the same tongs. Okay, just a different way of saying it. Number 5, contaminated equipment. Using a meat slicer for both raw meat and deli meats. Raw meat, deli meats. Deli meats are cooked, okay, without proper cleaning and sanitizing in between uses. Make sure you are in your operation, wherever you are separating raw and ready-to-eat food preparation. Raw meat should be on one side of the room. Ready-to-eat food should be on the other. You should never mix the two. Let's talk about number 6, cloth towels. Wiping up spills of raw meat juices with a cloth towel and then using the same towel to clean other surfaces. Absolutely. I mean, that happens so often in an operation. It's not even funny how often it happens. It happens a lot. So, make sure. I know in operation, chefs like to put a towel behind their apron or, like they put it up on their shoulder. You got to be careful. The transfer of bacteria from one surface to another is real. Okay? Remember, cross-contamination occurs when harmful bacteria or other pathogens are transferred from one surface, food, or object to another, potentially leading to a foodborne illness. Potentially. Not always, potentially. Okay? Make sure you're using 2 separate cloths, one for cleaning, one for sanitizing. That's why you have a red bucket with a cloth in it and a green bucket with a separate cloth in it. You wash down your tasks, then you sanitize them and you let the surface air dry. Number 7, unclean surfaces. Placing cooked food on a plate or countertop that previously held raw meat, poultry, and seafood. Okay? Remember, we spoke about this. Okay? Not separating your tasks, not washing in between uses. Just like you wash your hands in between different tasks, you should wash your surfaces and your cutting boards in between tasks, or separate, or use color code cutting boards. All of these things are designed to prevent the spread of bacteria from one surface to another, hence the word cross-contamination. And lastly, shared marinades. So remember I told you that example of my parents back in the day, taking burger meat. Most of the time it was in a marinade, putting it on the grill, leaving the grill dish sitting outside while the burger is cooked, flipping the burgers using the same utensil they had transferred it onto the grill with. So there we go, cross-contamination already occurring without even noticing it's occurring. And then taking that cooked patty, putting it back in the same dish, the marinades, that it was sitting in, okay, and mixing cooked food with raw juices. My parents just thought, you know what, it was an innocent way of, keeping the food moist and flavorful. Well, it was moist, it was flavorful, and it was covered in potentially harmful bacterias. Um, and I'm sure one of the main things you'll learn in safety and sanitation is, what you do at home may not be done at your workplace. And the purpose of preparing you for a manager level test is to help you understand that what happens at home can't happen in an operation. Washing your meat under running water, right, to remove the excess, slime or, whatever is on that is dangerous. Cross contamination. So now you're washing this meat without getting too off topic here. You're washing this meat and all that bacteria is splattering all over your sink, which is supposed to be a sanitary condition, right? It's where you're washing your dishes, but then you're contaminating them with the surfaces beneath that are lurking because of that microworld. Okay? So using marinades that have been in contact with raw meat to base, okay? Base is to coat, okay? Serve cooked meats without bringing it to a boil first. A big one that has always popped up and has drawn a lot of speculation is taking French toast batter and reheating it to serve. People think that, when you combine milk and eggs and some cinnamon and some other flavors, it's going to enhance the flavors of the eggs that you're cooking. And sure, that is one way to kill off bacteria, but it is another good way to potentially draw in harmful pathogens. Okay, remember the transfer of bacteria from one surface, person, or object to another. That is cross-contamination. Now, Pesci, I have a question. Why on your PowerPoint then are you throwing the word allergens? Because cross-contamination happens as often as cross-contamination happens. It's not to be confused with cross-contact. Cross-contact is the transfer of allergens from one surface to another, or person or object to another. Okay? But cross-contamination is a transfer of bacteria. One is bacteria, one is allergen. Okay? Don't confuse the two. So, what I want to kind of do here as we wrap up this part of the chunking lesson is kind of just go through a storyline here. And instructors, I'll tell you when you can pause the video if you're showing this to students, or you can pause it yourself and then try to reassess what's going on here. So this is just an example. This didn't actually happen. Let's talk about Maria. Okay, we're gonna say that this is Maria. She's preparing dinner for her family. She's in a bit of a rush. Okay, this is how cross-contamination happens. It happens quickly and usually without us even really noticing or knowing it's happening. Okay, so she's in a bit of a rush. So she starts by cutting up some raw chicken on a cutting board. After slicing the chicken into pieces, she places it in a bowl to marinate. Moves on to preparing the vegetables for a salad. Without thinking, Maria uses the same knife and cutting board she used for the chicken to chop up the lettuce, the tomatoes, and the cucumbers. As she finishes, she places the freshly chopped vegetables into a salad bowl and mixes them with her hands. Once dinner is ready, Maria serves the salad alongside the grilled chicken. That evening, a few hours after dinner, her family starts feeling queasy and experiences stomach discomfort. The next day, they all come down with a foodborne illness. What happened? So instructors, this is a good opportunity for you to pause the video, maybe go back and re-watch, me explaining this story. Because now I'm about to tell you what just occurred. Obviously, I'm sure you're probably thinking, cross-contamination. Yeah, but let me go a little bit further into that so you can understand it as a whole. So Maria unknowingly cross-contaminated the vegetables by using the same knife and cutting board that were in contact with raw chicken. The bacteria from the raw chicken transferred to the vegetables, which were eaten raw, leading to food poisoning. This could have been avoided by using separate cutting boards and knives for raw meat and fresh produce, or by thoroughly washing the utensils and cutting board before reusing them. Everything we just covered. So I hope you got value out of today's lesson. Again, we are breaking down key concepts. We're breaking down the chapters a little bit deeper. I'm breaking down the different aspects of each chapter so that we're slowing down our pace and truly trying to understand all these different terms. So if you got value out of today's video, I encourage you to please hit that like button. Consider sharing this with a friend or a colleague or another student, and consider joining our members community. We have over 40 plus members that you can be part of and be able to get access to members only content. We're doing so much here at Food Service Education. We're doing the best we can to continue to teach the principles of safety and sanitation while trying to help you understand the information in a coherent way so that when you take your industry certification, you pass it. A couple key things I want you to take away. So obviously this is the playlist that you're viewing on, okay? You'll see the first hour of every playlist is free. So this is chapter 2 that I was referring to. I encourage you to check out chapter 2 of, the regular or the original playlist. Okay. You can see it's got 30,000 views in the last 2 years. It is our #1 playlist. You can check out the comprehensive where I go a little bit further into depth. When you are part of our Safety Pro members, you also gain access to the updated content related to the food code updates that were recent with ServSafe. What else? Forms of contamination. That's going to be chapter 2. Those are essential terminology, keywords to take away to understand. Again, you get that when you join our Safety Pro membership. And then also remember, we have begun the process of translating our content into different languages. This content is ranging from this playlist right here, which is our original 7th edition playlist, our most popular playlist on the channel. And we have an entire Espanol, an entire Korean playlist. We're working on Italian and we're working on French. Check out our community tab for updates. I put a lot of updates up there. I try to show what students are writing in when they share that they have passed their industry certifications. I try to celebrate with you. So if you have taken ServSafe and you have passed it, consider, sharing your results with us on the channel, because it really encourages others to take the initiative to use our material to help them pass their tests. And you'll see a lot of students pass their tests the first time because we took the time to really dive in deep into the material. This is our most recent update for members. This every month I will put out a members update. This is just me thanking our members for supporting our community, our private members community. So again, I hope you got value out of today's video. I want to go back to point number 2, if you recall. So this is cool. You can see this is my current job as a food specialist in the environment. I live this life. So, one cool thing to take away from these images here on the screen is you can see we're working away from anything else. We're in a dedicated table examining a shipment of chicken breasts that came in, and we were having issues with sizing. So I went and did some investigative work, and we found that there was a lot of inconsistencies. But again, just to reinforce, this is something I live every single day. So whether I'm teaching it here on food service education, or I'm out in the field and actually putting everything to use, everything I teach you here is everything that I practice every single day in my job. All right, I want to go to, and you're going to see a privacy screen here for a second. So just give me a second. Cross-contamination. Let's see. What are examples? What can I show you? Okay, let's take a look at this image right here. Okay, we have unwrapped, unlabeled, ready-to-eat foods. You get cheese, butter, sitting next to raw eggs. A complete disaster. That's how cross-contamination can occur without you even noticing, without you really even knowing. This is a big no-no. This happened a lot within my operation that I used to teach at. And this is really honestly the real reason why I decided to up and leave education in the public sector and take to just teaching it online. Here's cross-contamination, right? And then I'm going to show you how this actually happened. But this is an up-close picture. You know, the butter is wrapped. This is commercial grade butter. It always comes in brick form. In the supermarkets for your home use, you're going to see it in stick form. But in the commercial setting, this is how it looks. And something dripped onto this sheet pan that had butter on it and contaminated it. So all this butter, even though it was wrapped, still had to be tossed out because remember, you can't see, smell, or taste bacteria. So that's what makes it so incredibly dangerous. When in doubt, always toss things out. Okay, take a look at this picture right here. So we have a improper shelving issue here. Eggs should be on the bottom. The ready-to-eat food that is wrapped on those sheet trays should be on top, right? Prevent the spread of bacteria. Sure, there might not be any forms of leaking happening here, but there's also this thing called condensation. And if it drips onto any of that food down below, it could potentially contaminate it. If any of those eggs break, if the shelf collapses, I mean, a whole disaster just waiting to happen here.
When you open them, you will see a very well cleaned and organized unit. Okay? I'm very, very strict about making sure that you are properly operating these units the right way. It's not like a refrigerator at home where you can just throw things in and store things wherever you want. More specifically, we have our raw food down below, and we have our cooked food, also known as RTE, or ready-to-eat food. That is food that doesn't need any additional cooking. It is located on these shelves. Now, depending on what you are storing in these units will determine what shelf it goes on. Typically, ready-to-eat food goes on the very top shelf. If you have ready-to-eat food for 2 shelves, that's okay. But as long as you're properly storing it from lowest temperature to highest temperature. Ready-to-eat food that doesn't need any further cooking goes on top. Okay? So we have ready-to-eat food, we have fish, we have ground beef, and we have chicken, etc. Lowest temperature to highest temperature. 135 to 165. Does that make sense? So again, make sure that you are properly shelving things.
This is a big no-no. This would be by definition of with how cross-contamination could occur in an operation. But remember that butter I showed you? This is where it comes from. So somebody decided to take frozen turkey out of the freezer, put it on the top shelf of food. This was another instructor in a different classroom. This was a big issue because the health department inspected our kitchens and we're constantly being, constantly in violation of, just issues across the board. And every time I brought this up to my administration, they didn't want to hear it from me. But this is how cross-contamination occurs. The meat thaws, and this is why you never put raw food on top of ready-to-eat food. It drips down below. Everything in this refrigerated unit had to be discarded. And, Again, not to put down an instructor, all for in the name of education. None of this should have been happening with a certified chef, and he didn't do anything about it, or he didn't turn it into a learning example. I always took these pictures to document what was actually happening. This is by definition, ladies and gentlemen, cross-contamination. And this is what makes it so dangerous. Everything in this refrigerator was tossed out. I made the executive call. Even though it might have had a lid on it, you can never be too careful when cross-contamination occurs. So again, if you got value out of today's video, hit that like button. Questions, put them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I love responding. I will always respond to those who take the initiative to ask questions. Remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question. And remember, we're here to serve you and help you with your safety and sanitation needs. We are working on some other playlists, but the main focus of this channel is safety and sanitation.